Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Cow. Today we are going to be making this gorgeous fox graph. That's what I'm going to start you off on today. So to start with, I just want to talk to you a little bit about making graphs in the Bobble. Now, if you saw my first video on how to do a Bobble graph, you will probably have noticed that it has been taken down. I took it down because I did it a little bit wrong, for which I apologise. If you were following that video and your square came out slightly different to the pattern, then I apologise for that. This was my graph and you can see I did a big yay when I finished. So originally I told you that you needed to start one row on this side and then the next row on the other side, and then you keep changing sides. You don't. That was the biggest thing that I told you wrongly. And as I was doing my square, which I finished, doing my tulip, you can see that on screen there. It won't all fit on, but if I just bring this up. So I made there was a slight mistake with how I did it, because it didn't quite work with starting on the other side of the graph. So, but this is it in the end, and it looks almost identical to the graph, just not quite. So I'm going to take you through it today, step by step. We'll forget all about the other video, and we're going to start today on this new video. Okay, so this is what doing a graph in Bobble could look like. It has so much texture. It is gorgeous. It's very thick, so you could use it for a blanket, but I think it would be too thick for a blanket unless you have a very, very cold climate. And I'm in the UK, and even for me, this would be too thick. But it would be perfect for things like cushions, or even for a mat, like a bath mat. It would be perfect. And the back, I haven't sewn in my end yet, but the back is almost the same. You can just see a few places where I've carried the yarn through, but I use Bobbins, so it's fairly neat on the back there. So that is what your bobbles will look like. Okay, let's get rid of that and let's have a look at today's graph. I'm going to get rid of this one. And we are starting on this cute fox today, and you will need to go to the Facebook group and download your own copy of this graph, either to print out or on your device to follow through on your own, because I won't be showing you the whole graph worked up today. You'll need to finish it yourself, so you'll need your own copy. Okay, now I would say that a paper copy I prefer a paper copy, because then I can get a pencil, and as you've seen on this one, I can just mark off where I've done. I can write on it how many blocks there are, and I can just make notes on here. Okay, so the first thing to note is that every square on this graph, if I can zoom in, okay, every square on this graph corresponds to a bobble stitch. Okay, the bobble stitch is going to be 5 incomplete double crochets. That's US double crochets. In the UK, that will be a treble. Okay, so a double crochet in US terms and a treble in UK terms. So I'm going to be talking about US terms as double crochets. So you'll be doing 5 incomplete double crochets to make your bobble. Okay, and each one of these squares is a bobble stitch. And what you do is we make one row to start with, which doesn't count as your first row. We make one row of single crochet, so that's double crochet in the UK. Okay, we make one row of whatever your first row of your square is. Now I'm pretty much following the colours on this graph today. So my first row will be a single crochet row in grey. Okay, and this chart has 25 squares, so we need to double that and then plus 1. So we've got 25, if I'm on screen, am I on screen? Okay, 25 times 2 plus 1 is 51. So we need to do 51 chains, so 51 chains, and then we will have 50 single crochet. Okay, so 50 single crochet for that first row. So you times it by 2 and then add 1 for your chains, and then you will have 1 less than the chain of stitches because you'll start working in the second chain, which I will show you in a moment as well. Okay, so the only other thing to say is because the bobbles form on the back of your work, away from you, we start on this side. Okay, so row 1, which is not this part here, that's just your foundation. So row 1, we start on this side, okay, and then we'll do our bobble row, and then we do a row of single crochet back along in the same colours, which again I'll talk to you about as we start to crochet. Okay, so you'll single crochet back along, and then you'll start row 2 again on this side, and then you'll single crochet back along, and then you'll do row 3 of your bobbles, and so on until you get up to row 25, and then you'll just finish, you'll do your row of bobbles, and then you'll finish your row with single crochet. Okay, so that is the basic thing about working in the bobbles. Okay, the only other thing to talk about really is bobbins, which you've heard me talk about before, and Sammy talked to you about it as well on the previous video showing you the tapestry method. So you could carry all your yarn through while you're using other colours. You could carry a piece of yarn across and that would work fine. But when you've got more, you know, when you've got a few colours on a row, that can become quite bulky and you can end up wasting a fair bit of yarn that way. So what I like to do is look and see how many sections of each colour I have. So if I look at the grey for a start, the grey, I have a whole line here, that's fine. And then on row 2, it splits. If you can see over here, we've got 3, and then you've got all this long piece where there are no grey, and you would be carrying your yarn through all of that and then starting over here. So if you look, there is a distinctive section. You've got one half here, and then you've got one half here. Now there is a bit here where it goes through 3, 2 and 1 stitches. I would just carry it through those. I wouldn't bother about a separate bobbin for those. I would just carry it through. Okay, so if we look here, this one doesn't split at all until we get up to here. And again, I would just carry my yarn through those few stitches. I would carry it about 4, 5, maybe 6 stitches at the most. I would carry it through. Otherwise, I would have 3 bobbins here, but I'm just going to use 2. Okay, and then if we look at the white, we've got one white here, so I'll just use a piece for that, and then I'll just cut it off. And then here there's only one square separating these 2 whites, so I'll just carry it across, and that's all in one section. This white here is pretty much in one section. You've got a little bit here where it does separate. So what I will do is I will use one down here, and then when we come up to here, I will separate and start a second bobbin for this side and one for this side, okay? And the orangey brown for the fox, there aren't too many squares to carry it through at a time, so I'm just going to carry that one through. And the black are sort of odd ones, so I'm just going to join that and then cut off when it's done. So if this is the first video you've seen where we've talked about bobbins, what you can do is you can use, it's basically bobbins are working ends of yarn, so you could just use 2 balls of yarn, so you can use 2 of the same colour if you've got more than one. So where I want to use 2 white, I can just use 2 balls of white, okay? That's easy. Or if you haven't got two of the same colour, or you don't want to start a new ball, or you only need a small bit, bobbins can help as well with keeping your work area sort of minimalised, so you've not got lots of big balls on sort of taking up the space. So this is I've made a bobbin of black. Now this is most likely going to be too much. I've not got many squares of black here, but it just saves having another big ball of yarn on here. So I made this just from a piece of card, so just a regular old piece of card from some packaging, and it's about 2 inches by about 3 or 4 inches, and all I did was just drew two diagonal lines to cross over, and then I drew a circle, so a bit like a bow tie, and then cut around there. It's a bit of a bow tie shape, and then I just rounded the corners so they wouldn't catch on the yarn, and I've done a little slit on each end so that I can secure my yarn when I've finished using. Okay, so that is really simple, just a piece of old card that was in some packaging. Make a bow tie shape. It works really well, and you can wrap a lot of yarn around there actually. Perfect. And the other way is using some clothes pegs. So just a regular old clothes peg that I just wrapped my yarn around and then secured it in the clip part, the end of it. So so for the grey, I'm going to use a bobbin and use the ball of wool. Okay, and that's it really. You can use toilet roll tubes. You can use just a piece of straight card. That's fine too. Anything that you can wrap it around. The pegs are quite handy. You can clip it to your work when you've finished. So yeah, have a play, see what you like. But these do work quite well as well. Okay, and the only other thing is that you might want to have a pencil to mark off your squares when you've done, or if you've got it on a device, you might wish to have a post-it note so that you can pop your post-it note down on top of your phone screen and just cover up where you're at. Okay, and just cover up so you know that you're on the next row. And then even with the post-it note on your device, you can sort of write the row numbers if you liked, and then you could just tick them off when you're done. So lots of different ways you can do it, or you can have a ruler, lay a ruler across, and then just keep moving the ruler up. Have a play and see what feels best for you. Okay, so I'm using a 4.5mm hook with regular DK yarn, double knit like worsted weight yarn. The tulip one that I just showed you, I did that with a 4mm, and it made it quite tight and dense. I'm just going to use a 4mm one today to make it a little looser, and then I'm going to see how they are and see which one I prefer for the future. Okay, when I am talking about the colours of this grass, I'm going to refer to the colours that I'm using. So if you're using completely different colours, then just bear in mind that I am referring to them as the colours that I'm using. So the background will be grey, the fox will be this orangey brown tan colour, and then I'll have the white for the fox's face and features, and then black for his eyes and ears. Okay, so let's get started with the background colour. So remember I said you want to do a chain of double the amount of stitches. So 25 times 2 and then add 1, so 51 chains. So chain 51 and then work into the second chain from the hook and make a single crochet, and then 50 single crochets. Okay, or if you know how to do the chainless foundation single crochet, feel free to make 50 single crochets in that way if you prefer. So I will see you when I have 50 single crochets. Okay, so I have a row of 50 single crochets, and what we're going to do now is look at our row 1, and row 1 is all grey background stitches. So we're going to do 25 bobble stitches, and you might be thinking, well, why have I got 50 single crochets? And that's because for each square we're going to do a bobble and a single crochet. Okay, so for the start of every row now, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work around. Now I have got a slightly odd looking end here because I needed to add a single crochet to the end of mine. I didn't count enough chains. So a chain 1 at the end of each row and turn, and then we're going to do our first bobble in the very first stitch. So yarn over as for a double crochet, go into your stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then we're going to leave the last loops on the hook. So we've got 1 loop here that's for the hook and 1 loop from your stitch. So we're going to do that 5 times in total, and you will end up with 6 loops. So 5 for the stitches and 1 for the hook. So yarn over, insert as for a double crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. You've now got 3 loops. Yarn over, insert, pull through 2 loops. 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And you've now got 5 loops, that's 4 stitches. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And you've now got 6 loops on your hook. So that's 5 stitches you've done there. So yarn over and pull through all 6 loops. And now, that doesn't look much like a bobble, but we're going to do a single crochet in the next stitch. And this pulls that bobble in and makes it puff up for your bobble stitch, and you'll see this a bit more as we go along. The one at the end is always a bit sort of on the side. So in the next one, yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and a second time just yarn over, pull through 2, leaving that last loop on the hook, and again. We've now got 4 loops, so each time as if you're doing a double crochet, but just doing that first yarn over, pull through 2, and again. Okay, and there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 6, and then a single crochet in the next. And there we go, and now you can see that's pulled that through and made it into a nice puffy bobble stitch. Okay, so we're going to work this all the way along. I'll show you once more. So we're doing 5 incomplete double crochets. Okay, so yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and you've got 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and you've now got 6 loops on your hook. If you end up with 7 loops, just take one off and pull that yarn down. So yarn over and pull through all 6 loops, and then a single crochet in the next stitch. And that is that. That's your 3 bobbles done. So I will leave you to do the next 27 bobbles. So you have 27, what am I talking about? 22. And then you'll have 25 bobbles and 25 single crochets at the end of this first row. And I'll see you when I've finished mine. Okay, there is my row of 50 grey bobbles for the background, and it does like to curl, so it's looking a bit like a curly Q. If you've ever made a curly Q, octopus tentacles and things, it does like to curl. It does get a little bit less curly as you work up, but it still will curl a fair bit, so just bear with it. Okay, so what I've done is on my row here I've just put a line through each box using a pencil. I like to use a pencil so that I can just erase them and use the same graph again, rather than using pen and then having to sort of print it out again. Okay, so for each row we have to do two parts. Okay, so the first part was doing the bobble, so bobble and single crochet alternating. Okay, for every bobble we do a single crochet. So now we have to work back along, and we're going to do a single crochet in the top of every single crochet and a single crochet in the top of every bobble. So as I said to you, we start each row with a chain 1 and then we turn our work around. Okay, so we're going to be doing 50 single crochets. We've got 50 bobbles and 50 single crochets, 50 in this same colour. So you want to go into that first stitch, which will be a single crochet, and then to go into the top of the bobble, what you want to do is kind of turn sideways, and then if I just drop that piece down a moment, turn it sort of so you can see over the top, and then you want these last two strands, these last two loops there, and that's what you're going to go through and make your single crochet. Now don't make these single crochets too tight because it will pull your work in. Okay, so do them fairly loosely. Just, yeah, you don't want to pull it really tightly because it will pull your work in and it won't be helpful. So continue working along, 1 in each single crochet and 1 in the top of your bobble, which is those 2 loops at the back there, like I've just shown you. Okay, so do those 50 and then I'll see you at the end of this row. Okay, now the last one of the row is, last single crochet of the row will be on that bobble, and that can sometimes be a little tricky as it sort of curls around. So just sort of bring it towards you and find those back 2 strands of yarn and do your single crochet, and there we go. So it's really curly now. It's quite cool actually, quite like that. So all I like to do is open it out, and then after each single crochet round open it out and then just give it a slight stretch, just to make sure that those single crochets aren't too tight. And this is especially useful the further up the graph you get, that you don't want it sort of pulling in the center. So just give it a slight stretch and then you're ready to go on the next row. Okay, so the next row, as I said, we're going to start on this left hand side. We normally would start on the right hand side. We're starting on the left for every row, which is why our numbers are on the left here. So we've got 3 grey. You might find it useful to write the numbers in there. So 3 grey, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of our fox colour. 1 black, and then 2 fox colour, 1 white, 2 fox, 1 black, 2 fox, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grey. There's quite a lot of colour change going on in this row, and if you're not confident that you've counted correctly, you could just count those back up and it should all add to 50. Not 50, 25. 25! Okay, so this is where I'm going to use 2 separate ends of grey. I'm going to bring my bobbin of grey in and use for the other end. Okay, so let's do 3 grey for a start. Let's start us off with the grey, and then I'll get you started on joining in a bobbin or a new colour. Okay, I'm going to show you the sort of different things that you can encounter in this, and then I will be leaving you to just get on your merry way. So let's not get that tangled. Okay, so to start, remember we're going to do a chain 1 to begin every row, and then we're going to turn our work around. We're going to do a bobble stitch into that very first single crochet. So you know how to do that now. So do 3 bobble stitches, remembering to do your single crochet in between. Do 3 bobble stitches, and then we'll do the last single crochet together, because that's when we will change colour. Okay, I have 3 bobbles, but the third one hasn't sort of popped yet because I haven't done the last single crochet. So I'm going to start the single crochet, and I'm going to leave those 2 loops there. I'm not going to yarn over and pull through, okay? I'm just going to bring this yarn down so it's on the back of my work, not on the bobble side. I want the bobble side to stay as clean and free from any yarn carries as possible. Okay, it's all going to take place on the back. It's still going to keep fairly neat and tidy, but I just want to make sure there's nothing happening on the front. It's all nice and neat. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my fox colour, my brown, and I'm going to hold that tail at the back, or towards me, and then I'm going to pull that yarn through to finish that stitch. Okay, I'm going to leave this grey here. I'm going to pick it up when I come back along the row next time. And now I'm going to work with my brown. So I'm going to do the first bobble in the next stitch. Now you could work over this tail, but I prefer to sew them in afterwards and make sure they're nicely secure. Okay, but I probably will just work over it for the very first stitch just to help it to stay in place. So just work this first stitch, that grey or first bobble. The grey may be a little loose, but we'll just give that a slight tug to just tighten it up in a moment. Okay, so we'll just do this first bobble of our foxy. Okay, and then single crochet. Okay, and then I'll leave this tail to sew in afterwards, but it just helps secure that now, that tail to start with. So this grey, if the stitch is a little loose, just give it a slight tug and tighten that stitch, but don't tighten it too far, because these stitches where you change colour can tend to go a bit small and tight and get hidden, so don't pull it too tight. Okay, so we're going to leave that until we return to that end of the row, and we're going to work 6 bobbles in this fox colour. And we'll do the 6 single crochet together. So do your 6 bobbles. We've done one now. Do so make sure you've got 6 bobbles, and we'll do that last single crochet together. Okay, 6 brown bobbles there. 6 brown bobbles with single crochets in between. Okay, so let's come back to our graph. And I'm going to mark off those 6, and we've just got 1 more single crochet to do, and then we will be changing to black. Now because there's only 1 black in between, I'm going to carry my brown through my work to do these 2 here. Okay, so let's start. Oh, I think I have some yarn fluff gone up my nose. Oh, itchy nose. Oh, don't you hate when that happens? Yarn fluff. Oh gosh. Okay, so let's start that single crochet, leave those last 2 loops on the hook, bring that yarn down towards you so that it's on the back. If we were working on this front side and changing colour, you would pop your yarn the other side. Okay, make sure that it's always, you're leaving the yarn down away from the bobbles. Okay, so bring this black in, and I'm just going to unwind enough for 1 bobble. I don't know how much 1 bobble takes, but let's unwind some there. So again, pop the tail down towards you so it's away from the bobbles, and pull through to finish that single crochet. And now I'm going to work over this just for that 1 stitch to secure that end a bit. So we're going to do our first bobble, and carrying the brown through. So hold that brown along the back of the work like so, and then we're going to do this first bobble, making sure that we go under those 2 pieces of yarn. Okay, so do your first bobble, making sure those 2 pieces of yarn are trapped in between, inside your stitch, inside your bobble. There we go. Now we've got a nice long bit here, so it's going to give a slight pull on that black just to bring that in a little bit, and then a slight pull on that brown, just a slight. Okay, and then we just wanted 1 bobble, so we're going to be changing back to our brown. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and start the black single crochet, and then I'm going to bring this black down towards me, And this is where I can, having small bobbins is great because you can just secure that back in there, bring it down towards you so it won't get tangled, and then I'm going to bring the brown through that stitch to finish. So there's your one black bobble, all done, all nice and neat, all finished, and it's your black is just here ready to go next time. So we've done the black and now we've got 2 brown to go. So do your 2 brown bobbles, and I will see you to do that second single crochet of brown to change to white. Okay, so I've done my 2 bobbles of brown and I just have to start my next single crochet of brown, and then I'm going to bring this towards me, and then we're going to use the white for 1 block, 1 square. So I'm going to continue carrying my brown through. I can't see any point in starting a new brown, so I'm going to bring in the white, unroll some of this, okay, and we're going to bring that white in, and we're going to join it just as we have all of the other colours that we've done. So pull that through, and so I'm going to work over this end just for the first stitch, and I'm going to work over the brown to carry it through. So you're going to do 1 bobble of white in the next stitch, making sure that you trap those 2 colours inside your stitch. There we go. And then again, I've got quite a long piece of a loop there, so I'm just going to pull on that white slightly just to pull that down and make it a little smaller. Okay, and then I'm going to do my single crochet and pull that white down towards me so that it's out of the way. Double check that I don't need the white anywhere else on this row, and I don't, so I'm going to finish that stitch with the brown. Now you do have quite a lot of yarn in use here, so just watch what you're doing with it and just try not to get too tangled really. So that's that one. So now we've got 2 brown to do, so we're going to do those 2 brown and then we will change to black on the second one, okay, and we'll carry the brown through. So just as we've done here, we've been carrying the yarn through. Actually, I said I was going to cut this black, so I'm going to cut this black so that it's ready to use further down. So I'm going to cut it and leave a tail. I could have carried it through. I could have carried it through these stitches, but black can show quite well, so I thought I wouldn't. So I'm just going to sew those in at the end, and I will start a new piece of black when I start here. Okay, so I'm going to do these 2 brown. And then I'll join you to just, I'll come back to you to just show you how I'm going to bring this black in. Okay, so I've done my 2 brown bobbles. I'm just going to do my last single crochet. We'll start it and then bring my tail, my end down. And remember I said I've now got 1 black, so I'm going to bring this black in for this stitch. Now this does mean I'm going to have a few ends to sew in, but I kind of find it easier than carrying it through or having 2 bobbins or whatever, just for the sake of 4 stitches. I could have had 2 little bobbins working here, but I just decided not to. So pull that through, and then we've got 2 more brown to do after this one, so I'm going to carry the brown through as I make this stitch. Okay, so I'm going to work the next bobble in black, and then I will change over to my brown on that single crochet. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 bobble in black and then change to brown for 2 more bobbles. Okay, there we go, there's my black and my 2 brown, and now I'm ready to change back to the grey for these last 7 bobbles of this row. So I've got my second bobbin of grey, and I'm going to start that one for this 7 bobbles. So again, just bring the tail down and through those last 2 loops of that single crochet. And then I'm going to do leave that brown ready for the next row and do my 7 grey bubbles. And that is that. So I will see you at the end of this row. Okay, there is my row with all of my colour changes. And as you can see, the bubbles all line up nicely on top of each other. They should be all lined up nicely, one on top. If they are slightly misaligned, then you might have missed a stitch or added a stitch, or you might have gone into the wrong stitch for your single crochet. So just have a double check that they're all in line. And there you go, and you just saw that I just pulled through that loose bit of yarn there for that white. So all nice and neat on the front, some colour changes on the back. So there we go. So now we have to do the second part of this row, which is to work back along a single crochet ready to make the foundation for the next row of bubbles. And in hindsight, I probably should not have cut the black at the end of this stitch, because I need to do single crochets on top. But I think that with the yarn I've got left there probably is enough to do my single crochets. I only need to do 2. And down on this one as well. Otherwise I'll just rejoin the yarn in and do it that way. This is still a fairly new stitch technique to me. It is fairly easy to learn, just about like where to cut your yarn or not. So if you can use bobbins or balls of wool rather than having to cut your yarn, I would highly recommend it. It's much more foolproof than my way. So anyway, work back along, do a chain 1 to start your row, and then single crochet in every single crochet, and in the top of every bubble work a single crochet. And remember, where your colours changed, remember to change colour on that last pull through of the single crochet. Okay, make sure you pull your yarn down tight enough where they change over as well, but not too tight to distort it. So just work back along, making those changes just as you've done before, with single crochets all the way along, and I'll see you at the end of this row of single crochets. Okay, here is my row after doing the single crochet. So you can see they're on top there. So just give it a tug, make sure it's not too tight with those single crochets, they won't pull in. And then we're going to start row 3. So I have marked off all of my blocks, my squares on row 2, and ticked off row 2 just there. And I've written in the numbers for how many stitches on the next row, how many of each colour, so I don't have to keep counting. So I'm going to do my 2 grey here, and then I'm going to show you how we'll work over bringing this brown a stitch closer. Okay, so I'm going to do my 2 grey bubbles, and I'll meet you for that last grey single crochet. Okay, so I'm ready to do this last single crochet of grey, but I need to bring the brown in to start. So I'm just going to bring this down towards me, and then I'm going to pick up this brown from here. Now I need to take it across. So if you can see this, I need to take it across there like so. So that's what I'm going to do. Pull it across, not too tightly but not too loosely. Just make sure it's sort of not got too much, it's not tugging too much, okay? And then you're going to start your next bubble in the next stitch, making sure this piece of yarn is going to be trapped in your bobble, so that it won't be left at the back of your work just as a sort of ugly piece of yarn just trailing across. If you forget to do this though, and you have got that piece of yarn, it's not the end of the world. It's only a small piece of yarn, so it's not the end of the world. And then go under that last little piece there. Can you see there's a little piece left there? So we're going to go under there and then into that next stitch for the single crochet. There we go. Nice neat changeover, nice and neat. So you're going to do 7 of the brown, and then you're going to do a black, and then when you get to the white just here, you'll be doing exactly the same. You'll be carrying the white, you'll be pulling it towards you over here, and you'll just then work over it for these this first stitch. Okay, so that's about it for what to tell you about the bobble, working a grafting bobble. You will get some yarn tangles, just every now and again. Just have a sort out, untangle them, get them all in order again. I like to kind of keep going until they get so you can't pull the piece of yarn through, and then I'll have a bit of a tidy up. So remember, the things to remember are that each square is a bobble stitch and a single crochet. Okay, so you bobble stitch and then a single crochet each square, and then you work back along in the same colours for your single crochet and change colour in that single crochet, those last 2 strands of single crochet. And that's about it really. When you get to your very final row, row 25, you will again remember to do a row of single crochet just to finish off. Oh, excuse me. I said I had some yarn fluff up my nose and I thought I was going to sneeze. So you can do a single crochet row to finish that off, or you can choose to leave it without the single crochet row. Personally, I prefer it with, but that's entirely up to you, whether you do or not. So I highly doubt this will be finished this evening for the video. So I will tell you to watch out in the group, have a look out in the group for when I finish this square and upload it to the group album. And you can see my finished piece, but it is unlikely to be this evening. But I wanted to get this tutorial out to you for this evening, considering as the first one with the tulip went slightly wrong. I hope you found this useful and helpful, and if you have, that you'll click the like button, give us a thumbs up. It's much appreciated. It's always great to spend some time crocheting with you, and I can't wait to see photos of what you've done in our Facebook group, or over on Instagram. You could I don't know if anyone has yet, but on Instagram you could use the hashtag BeyondTheCal or BTC, and it'd be great to see any of your stuff over there. So until next time, just keep hooking and don't let your tea get cold.